Okay, so this is day 2 of transformations of sine and cosine. Guys, it hasn't changed anything. We're just practicing a little more. We're on problem number 6 in your notes. So let's go ahead and start there. And I've taught you before that there's an order which you have to do them. 1, 2, and 3. Step 1, remember, we like to start, okay, at the beginning, which is here. This is step 1. You look and see if there's any change in your amplitude. On this problem, is there a change in your amplitude, guys? What is it? Yeah, -2. So if you come down and you go ahead and you draw your regular sine graph, and then we'll adjust for the problems. See if you can find me the new amplitude. Remember, that's what we adjust first, the amplitude. Which, if you look at the picture, it says the amplitude is -2, right? We're going to stretch it up tall, stretch the y's, and we're going to flip it. So instead of going like a roller coaster up and down, we're going to go the exact opposite, right? And if you look up here, our amplitude then normally is 0. So it's just 0 times -2. 1, which is now -2. 0 times -2 is 0. And -1 times -2 is +2. And then back to 0. 0 times -2 is 0. That's your amplitude. This one's kind of cool because did I change? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's step 1. Where do we go for step 2? Where's step 2 at? The -6. Here's step 2. And it tells us to drop down 6. So that's easy enough. 1. You have to extend this a little bit. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Be kind of small with your lines so that you'll have room. So adjust for that, we've dropped down 6, there we go. And then step 3, what's step 3, guys?
There isn't.
Good, there isn't, it's the period, right? It's the number, it's what's in front of x. Okay, and this is step 3, and I didn't change the number in front of x, so I don't have to mess with the third step, which is nice. Okay, which means that these marks are 1, 2, 3, 4 don't change. They're just regular, right? This is pi like it always is, 2 pi like always. Now see if you can build your graph. Okay, if you don't know how, walk me through it, I'll help you. My first stop is 0, 0, right? So you're going to start here. My next stop is to go down 2. Well, I didn't give myself any space to go down 2, did I? And I'm going to number these. If you don't, when you label your points, it's hard. Okay, so my next step was down 2. So I'm going to go down 2. It doesn't mean go to -2, it means go down 2. The next is 0, so back up to the incline. Then up 2, so at the incline you go up 2, which puts me at -4. And then back to 0, which is back to the incline. And there's your graph. The directions say to label a point. So why don't you try to label that top point or that bottom point? You want a point not on the axis. Give it a shot. So if I want to label this point right here, for example, we would call this 3 pi over 2, right? We didn't change any of the stops. And what's my y value? I'm sorry, yeah, my y value is -4. So this is 3 pi over 2 to -4. That's my point. If you want to label this lowest point down here, what's this stop called? Pi over how low do we go? So this is pi over 2, negative 8. Either of those answers would be the correct answer. Okay, you ready for number 7? Okay, let's give it a shot. Where do I start? What's step 1? Okay. Right, the amplitude. Step 1. Find the new amplitude. You try it. Well, before I would find the amplitude, also I would, okay, let's graph my sign. Try to find the amplitude. What's my next step? My next step is something on the end, up and down, right? Is there an up and down change? No, so step 2 is done. We didn't have to do it. So go to step 3. Step 3 messes with the period, which is the number in front of x. Okay, when you're trying to mess with the period, remember you have to find the total and the part, right? You want to find the total and the part. What's my normal total before I mess with anything? 2 pi. Normally I travel 2 pi to see the entire sine or cosine graph. Okay, so if you want to start with that, this is actually step 3 because we're skipping step 2. So my total is normally 2 pi. And what are we going to divide it by, guys? 4, which puts us at pi over what? 2. That means the entire picture is going to be traveled in pi over 2. Yeah, which is not very far, is it? Where's pi over 2 at? If you're going to label these really tiny here, pi over 2, pi. So my entire picture is just right there. Okay? How do I find the part now? Each part. I take pi over 2 and what do I multiply by? 1/4. I want to find fourths, remember? So I multiply straight across and you get pi over 8. So my parts would be pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, and 4 pi over 8. You'll notice the last part is the same as the end. Okay, it's going to be really hard, so I'm going to use a pen instead of a marker and try to mark these. They're going to be so tiny. You see them? I'll zoom in really far. You can barely see because they're so little. My whole picture is here. Now let's graph. You ready? I'm going to say, well, I'm going to need 2 more. Right, here we go. 0 is 0, that didn't change. The first stop is way down here at -2. My third stop is back to 0, up at 2, and then my last stop at the very end is back to 0. It's so tiny. See if you can label that top point and that bottom point. Okay. What do you think? I know it's microscopic, but okay. Look at what do you think? Did you do the top or the bottom?
I did.
Okay, what's the top? It's this stop is this is the same as pi over 2, so it's the one before that. So 3 pi over Uh-huh. Positive. Excellent. Good job. Now find the bottom one, which is the second stop, this one, which would be pi over 4, negative 2. Either answer would have gotten you a 100. Does that make sense?
Yeah, wouldn't it be pi over 8?
Oh, it is pi over 8. I just wrote the wrong thing. I'm sorry. Look. This is the first stop is 0. The second stop is pi over 8. The third, this is the you see what I mean? 0 is your first. Mm-hmm. 3 pi over 8. I'm sorry, that's my fault. If you're going to count, you got to put 0 in there. This is your second, third. Alright, the next one, ready? Guys, the bottom line of this is the more we do, the better we are, right? So we're just going to keep going. Okay, so let's try the next one. Step 1. Did I change the amplitude any at all? No. So let's draw. Your cosine graph. Cosine is the U. I didn't change the amplitude. So go to step 2. What's step 2? Move it what? Good. Down 1. And if I were you, I would, like, you're going to have to label this. -1, 1, maybe extend this some. Down 1, so you're in this location now. No. I'm moving the x-axis down.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You're moving, hey, you're not moving the starting point. You're moving the x-axis up and down. This number right here, you move the whole x-axis down 1.
Okay, so you're starting at 0.
No, stop. Okay, look here. Let's look at this picture. Okay, this is my original x-axis. This said +3. So now then I go, this is my x-axis. I take my finger and I hop up 1, 2, 3, and draw the new x-axis. Okay, so this one said go down 1. This is my x-axis. I hop down 1 to make a new axis.
You was talking about how the y goes from 1 to 1 is
Okay, yes. But you still have to draw this line. But yes, you're there. Okay, so then the next step, sorry, I didn't understand the question. Number 3, it has a period, a new one. So the way I do this is my total normally would be 2 pi, but what are we going to do? We're going to take 2 pi and divide by what? Divide by 2. This. You always divide. First step is divide by the number that's there. So divide by 2. And so my new total is pi. That's the total. Your whole picture will be finished at pi. Which means that it's half as big, right? So now my picture finishes right here at pi. Then the next step is to find your parts. How do I find the part? What do I do? I take pi over 1 times 1/4. I want to find each part, every 4. So you have pi over 4. So you're going to list your parts, 0, right? 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, and then 4 pi over 4. This is your 5 marks. Now graph it. The amplitude didn't change. The amplitude is 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. So when you graph it, go up 1, back down. Label this point, please. If you're taking to try. Label that bottom point. The bottom of your new cosine graph. Are you supposed to simplify your x? Yes, always simplify.
So for this one, there would be 2 points. It would just be the one.
No, technically the question calls for you to label any point not on the axis. So you would be able to label this, this, or this. It just, I was just picking one to label.
Okay.
So I would just say, okay, label this one. So my stops were 0, pi over 4, 2 pi over 4. So we're going to call this 2 pi over 4 to pi over what? 2. So this order pair is pi over 2, comma negative 2. Not this one. That's negative 1. That's negative 2. We moved everything down. All right, go to number 9. We're only going to do 2 more, guys. We're going to do 9 and 10, and you are going to do 11 and 12 by yourself. Okay? All right. Now, number 9 is a little bit different, so to speed up a tiny bit, really quickly graph your cosine. I'll give you a second to graph it quickly. And if I were you, I would kind of spread this one out. Graph your cosine graph. And what we looked at before is step 1. Did I mess with the amplitude at all? No, so it's going to stay the same. 1, 0, negative 1, 0, 1. The amplitude doesn't change. Okay, we're going through quickly. Come on, graph. Let's go. Now go to step 2. What's step 2? Move it what? Down 3. That means take your x-axis and go down 3. Which I didn't draw it far enough, so I'm going to add some spots here. I'm going to label also while I'm there. Okay, so I'm going to take this and go down 3. So 1, 2, 3. Now this is my new x-axis. This is step 2. The next part is new. This is part 3, and we've not done one like this before. What's different about part 3 that none of the others that we've looked at have had? Yeah, there's a pi. Guys, the idea doesn't change. Okay? But before I do anything, I want to remind you of something. This will help you. We don't write it, but if we have this, and I say, this is 2 pi, this is pi, correct? What's the value about of 2 pi? So this is about 6.28. What's the value of pi? Almost. 3.14, right? So these spots have number values. We're just using pi instead. This is about 1.5. This is about 3. Does that make sense? So if I wanted to go 2, I would go between these two. If I wanted to go 8, I need to go way out. I need to go way out here. Are you all seeing what I'm talking about? Okay. If I wanted to go 3, I'd go right in the middle. Okay. So that's what's going on here. If I want to find my total again, I've changed it. My total normally is 2 pi. What are we going to divide by this time? 2 pi. So actually, in my opinion, it's easier. Because what's 2 pi divided by 2 pi? 1. Well, that's easy to maneuver. Right? And if you think about it, where would 1 fall? Well, this is 3.14 right here. This is about 1.5. So 1 is like right here. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. Okay? Yeah. Right. So 1. But total is not enough. What's our next thing to do? Once we get the total, we find the Parts. How do we find the parts? What do we do with our total? Multiply them by what? 1/4. So 1 times 1/4 is 1/4. So our stops would be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, which matches back to 1. So go down here, make it 4 stops. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're real little. Then graph your picture. 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. Try it. Try to label that bottom point for me. Doesn't matter which point you label, as long as it's on the axis. I was just trying to get everybody to have the same point for use simplicity. I would accept any point as long as you're not on the x or y axis. What's it going to be called? This stop is 0. This is 1/4. This is 2/4, which is 1/2. So we would call this 1/2 what? -4. Does that help? Did it get any easier? Okay, you try number 10. You may need a little help with the period on number 10, but give it a shot. Okay, y'all ready to try the total amplitude? Okay, not amplitude, period. Two pi divided by pi over 4. What's that going to look like? What do you do when you have a fraction in the denominator? You have to flip it. So 2 pi over 1 times 4 over pi. What's going to happen to the pi's? They cancel.
Yeah.
Just like they did before. If pi is in here,
When you multiply fractions,
guys, you always divide, just like always. So I'm going to take 2 pi and divide by whatever number is here. It just so happens this time it's a fraction. So I'm going to take 2 pi and divide by pi over 4. So then I flip it. So you end up with 8. So your total is 8. Right, how do you find parts? What do you do with your total? You multiply it by what? We have to change the procedure. Multiply by 1/4. What's 1/4 of 8? 2. So you count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8. That means it's really, really long. This is 6, right? It's going to go all the way out to 8. Okay, your picture would be 2, 0, -2, 0, 2. If you found a point, let's just say you find this bottom point here. You would be over 4 up. What are these labeled here? So 4 what? 4, 1. Your job is 11 and 12.